The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ingrid Clayton. I'm a clinical psychologist, a trauma therapist, and a trauma survivor. This is Ever Forward Radio.
We've all heard fight, flight, or freeze. Some people might say that that is a very typical human response to almost like daily situations. But Dr. Clayton, your work is presenting a fourth area, this aspect I never heard of called fawning. It's very overlooked, you're saying. So what is this fourth F? What is fawning? And how really does it differ from this traditional fight, flight, or freeze response?
Yeah, so fawning has been hiding in plain sight, essentially. So although it is a trauma response, it's a relational trauma response, it looks different from the others in terms of fighting back seems sort of obvious, right? You don't want this thing to happen. Flight, similarly. Fawning has us leaning in to the very relationships that are causing us harm. So it's sometimes called the please and appease response. Pete Walker is the psychotherapist who coined the term fawning in the context of trauma. He says it's a response to threat by becoming more appealing to the threat. But we
Say that again for me, please.
It's a response to threat by becoming more appealing to the threat. So sometimes that looks like appeasement, smiling, flattering, flirting even. Sometimes that looks like caretaking. I'm going to sort of soak up all the shame in the relationship and do all the, the heavy lifting.
Is that a conscious choice, you think, or are people kind of subconsciously doing this because of, like you're saying, a trauma response?
That's right. So it's different from what we think of in terms of the word fawning. It does tend to make us think of more of conscious manipulation. In the trauma response sense, it is not conscious. It is reflexive. It is instinctual. It comes online in a nanosecond. The body chooses the response that it believes will get us out of harm. And so the other thing to notice in relation to the others is that fawning tends to happen when fight, flight, or freeze are either not available or would make things worse.
Why wouldn't they be available?
Well, think about childhood trauma, for instance. We need our caregivers longer than any other species. We are dependent on them for our care. Fighting back tends to not be available. They're, 2-3 times our size. They hold all the power. Anywhere there's a power differential, in fact, you think of all systems of power. We love this idea that just have a voice chase, just set some healthy boundaries. But your body knows where it resides in the pecking order, and if those things might not be available to you. Similarly with the flight response, as a child, where are you going to go, right? You're probably going to be brought right back to the scene of the crime. You think about a toxic workplace. Well, I actually need my paycheck to survive, so I can't just leave, right? So fawning tends to come online as this almost last resort. I have to stay in this environment. I have to navigate it to the best of my ability. The body will always privilege safety and survival over all else, right? Including my opinions and my desires to hold on to my values and maybe even have a voice. Yeah.
How would you kind of describe this please and appease aspect differently than you already have in terms of how does it compare really to people pleasing or codependency even?
Yeah, it's a great question. So fawning to me is the heartbeat of those behaviors. It's the driver of those behaviors. In other words, it's the why. So what's long been missing in the discourse on people pleasing and codependency is our physiology, right? This is a nervous system response. And I think one thing that I experienced personally, and a lot of clients that have come to see me over the years, is this notion of codependency and even people pleasing. It places these sort of defects in you as though you're broken. Why would you do that? As though it's a strictly personal problem. Also, as though it's conscious, as though it's a choice, like we could just stop doing it. So when we put these behaviors in a trauma-informed lens, like we do with the fawn response, it expands our understanding of these things in both directions. One is the physiology. Listen, I'm not choosing to surrender my boundaries. My body is doing it to keep me safe in a larger sense. But secondly, it puts our behaviors in the context of our environment, right? So I am not dysfunctional. I am not broken. fawning is a genius adaptation to a dysfunctional environment.
So then, can we really be aware of this behavior while we're still in this fawning conducive environment? I feel like the environment probably, like you were saying, I can't just leave this job.
That's
I can't
right.
just leave this relationship. It's probably easier said than done for somebody to step out of that actual immediate environment to wrap their head around what's going on before they can even get into any change, right?
That's right. So the other thing that we tend to notice with fawning in particular, again, you think about childhood trauma. Childhood trauma, or what we call complex trauma, relational trauma, tends to be experiences of threat that are ongoing. It's day in, day out. It's different from the old definition of trauma, which was an acute event, right? It's a car crash. It's a natural disaster. There's a before and an after. With complex trauma, it's kind of like it's the air that you breathe. Where do I end and where does the traumatic situation begin? And so what happens is your trauma response is guarding you almost like a shield, protecting you even from potential threat again. So my sense of safety, and I do identify as a chronic fawner, right? So I'm trying to make the distinction here that in the moment, fawning is deeply adaptive. But what happens is when you have to exist in a fawn response, while your brain and body is developing, you start to feel like this is just the way it is. This is just my personality. Oh, I'm just really helpful. I'm just an empath. I just
Or
like
even
attuning to others.
This is, quote, normal.
That's right.
Right?
That's right, which is the other reason I think fawning has been missing from the 4 Fs, because it's so normalized in our minds. It's also highly endorsed. It's applauded. It looks like success. For women in particular, it looks like being a good girl often. So just to get back, though, to the sense that how do we become sort of more aware when you're living in it all the time? I think what starts to happen is you notice, I can't assert myself. I can't have a voice. I can't have a difference of opinion in any environment, whether my body feels a sense of threat or not, right? So although all of the trauma responses are normal, we all have them, I'm grateful for them, we are not meant to live in survival mode 24/7. And that's really the distinction. It's like I'm always going to fawn. I'm always going to have that tendency. But I want to have more freedom and flexibility. And so oftentimes the healing work is in noticing what's the difference between discomfort and danger, right? And so a lot of us have lost the ability to discern. Any discomfort starts to feel like, I'm not going to risk that again. I'd rather shrink and accommodate.
24/7 survival mode.
Yeah.
Can you explain that in a way that would land for someone right now listening or watching that isn't expecting it? Because I feel like this is probably where a lot of people are unfortunately living, or I would probably even just say they're existing. They're not yet fully living their life, much less thriving, because this is their norm. So can you paint the picture for us that is going to catch the attention of somebody to hopefully step out of this environment?
Yeah, I'll do my best to cover a few bases. To your point, I think there are fawning is context dependent and personality dependent. So it's going to look so different in each person's life, and it can be hard to spot. But that's why when I was writing this book, I turned to my practice and I asked 7 of my clients from very diverse backgrounds, different life experiences. They've really gifted me with their whole story of what fawning looked like, where it took them, and what it looked like to heal. But ultimately, if you're the person who feels like you can't have a reciprocal, healthy relationship to save your life, like, I'm happily married now, but for a long time, I felt like I'm dating the same person with a different face, right? They were either actively addicted and unavailable, abusive, cheating. It was like, I tried so hard. I'd sat on every therapist's couch and I still found myself. Similarly with friendships or in the workplace, if you're overextending yourself and the one to always volunteer and maybe not really taking credit and can't ask for a raise, these might be some indicators that you're stuck in a chronic fawn response. we tend to make ourselves small and prioritize everyone else's needs, desires, wants.
Okay, yeah.
And that's because our entire sense of safety lies outside our own body, right? In other words, are you mad at me? Do you validate what I have to say? Can you give me permission, right? My entire sense of safety is outside. So we're hyper vigilant. We can scan the environment. We hear someone walking in the room and we know by the sound of their footsteps what mood they're in, right? I think a lot of us have sort of termed ourselves as empaths or deeply feeling. And yet a lot of us don't know that those traits tend to come from a need, right? The necessary adaptation to keep ourselves safe.
Would you say, blanket statement here, many people that might associate or even self-describe as an empath are actually people suffering from a wounded nervous system, an untreated nervous system, an untreated trauma response?
I wouldn't say 100% of the time, but I think it's a pretty high number.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty high number.
So I actually have some real life examples kind of beyond what you were just sharing.
Perfect.
I wanted to see if this is what fawning is, or maybe help us describe in these examples that I think a lot of people can relate to, what fawning looks like, how to get out of it, how to kind of work your way through it.
Great.
Apologizing to someone who hurt you.
100%. It's very common, right? If I'm going to soak up all the shame in every relationship, like you can't be to blame, I'm going to take it on. There's this feeling that if I broke it, I can fix it. There tends to be what I call toxic hope, that like they're going to change any minute, right? It's going to get better any second now. And so if there's, a lack of harmony, what do we want? We want things to go better. Well, fine, I'm going to apologize. Oh, yes, it's on me. I'll do my work. I'm being so sensitive. I'm asking for too much.
The bigger woman here.
Yeah, it can wrap itself up in any, sort of armor, but it's essentially taking the blame.
But doesn't that, to play devil's advocate a little bit with that one, can't that be beneficial? Let's say you're in a relationship, right? And the other person objectively is to blame for this argument.
Yeah.
Now, two people in a relationship, there's always some there's some dual combination or contribution to that, I believe. But let's just say for argument's sake, partner one, clearly to blame. But partner two, for the sake of the relationship and wanting to like push past it and believes in this relationship and wants to just, move on and, see, hopefully if they can move on, they do exactly what you're talking about. Can't that be beneficial, at least in the short term, or is it just way too detrimental for that relationship in the long term that person should not even consider it?
I think there's probably lots of nuance there that's hard to attend to depending on the specifics. But generally speaking, yes, we can be generous, we can be caregivers, we can lean on forgiveness, we can go ahead and apologize, even just saying, I'm sorry that we're in this collectively, even if we don't think that it's our fault necessarily. The difference with fawning, again, is the conscious choice. Do I feel like I can say, this isn't mine, and I'm going to set a boundary, right? Or does it feel like the only way through is to accommodate, appease, and let it go?
So I'm hearing a real difference there in what you're apologizing for. I'm sorry that we are in this rough patch. I'm sorry that we're having this argument. I'm sorry that we're, in this space, I think you said, but not necessarily having to go, I'm sorry, and taking the blame for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, that is a distinction. But even the piece of going, I'm sorry that we're in this right now, that could still be a fawn response. It still might be, I need to de-escalate. I need to put out this fire because we can't move forward unless I do.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What about befriending bullies?
This happened to me not long ago, so maybe I'll use this as an example. I have a kid. My kid's in baseball. There's a dad at the baseball field. He's kind of a tyrant, and he's the bully. He really is. He's yelling at the coaches. He's yelling at the parents. He's yelling at the kids.
Sideline coach.
Exactly. So my body, what I learned to keep me safe for so many years was fawning. So I did not do this consciously. I can only see it in hindsight. But boy, did I saddle up right next to that guy. Hey, tell me, right? You play baseball. I absolutely befriended him.
This is that de-escalation point you talked about before. Yeah.
That's right. I propped him up. He needed to be the big man on campus. So, you know, I did. I got a little sweet, got a little small, got a little. And did he not yell at my son? He did not yell at my son. Did he yell at me? No, he didn't. So did it work in that respect? I would say the answer is yes. But after they left, I heard some other parents, and they were saying, I told that guy, don't you ever talk to my son. And I went, it never occurred to me to set that kind of a direct boundary. It was nowhere in my consciousness, right? It was only in hindsight. And I thought, wow, okay, so you know what? Did it work in that moment? Yeah, it did. Does a part of me wish still that I had even more flexibility where I could have thought to set more of a direct boundary in that setting? Yes. And as I'm befriending the bully, guess where all my attention was? On him. On him. What did I miss? All these other opportunities for relationships with these other families, right? So it's tricky. It's tricky, but it's common. Our bodies know where's the threat in the room, and it's almost like they're the fire, and my body is the blanket that you got to throw on it to put the fire out to keep everybody safe.
Sure. And in my mind, I'm prior military, and so a lot of what you're describing for me, I immediately go to recognizing the threat, assessing the threat,
yes,
risk mitigation,
wow, yeah,
and de-escalation.
That's right.
And so I'm struggling. I guess I'm struggling. We're still early in the interview, so maybe I'm still wrapping my head around this fawning aspect.
Yeah.
But also, just I think for the listener, I'm sure someone's got to be agreeing with me and going, that sounds like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
If you're there, I mean, you want to be able to focus on your son. You want to be there and enjoy your time. And you don't want this parental bully to deviate either of you from that.
Right.
So rather than confronting it and making it worse, confronting this guy, you know, with an equal threat of like yelling at him and not necessarily threatening, but, you know, don't talk to me, don't talk to my son,
right,
which I'm sure is never going to work in that scenario. I would say that you did the right thing. You mitigated that risk, and I'm guessing here that he probably quieted down, he probably calmed down, or, you know, people like that are probably just wanting to be seen and heard and feel like what they're saying matters, right? So that did that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Again, it's not like I'm mad at myself for doing it, but from the chronic perspective, I don't want to be the one who walks into every room, senses the threat, gets in the way of it. Do you know what I'm saying?
So it's like the frequency in which this might happen. So if this is your response to every scenario like this all of the time, this is when we're getting into this fawning aspect rather than maybe a one-off time of just de-escalation.
Yes. Yes, I would say yes. Yeah, and also, did I really need to go and prop the guy up? Did I need to be solely focused on him the whole time? Again, it's one example, and it's a way in to look at, you know, how complicated all of this really is. But the second thing I thought about, even in you in terms of saying that you're military, because I get this from men sometimes, and I wrote about this in the book, that fawning is not a gendered response. It's an equal opportunity defender like the rest. But it tends to be very common with women, right? So in this patriarchal society where men are historically sort of top of the food chain, or you think about people of color or you know, classism, all kinds of other hierarchical structures that we're navigating, our safety goes less and less and less depending on where you rank in that order. So sometimes men with status, you know, white men in particular, they'll be like, I kind of know what you're saying, but I just can't think of a time where that would make sense. And I go, well, maybe you've really, truly never been in a position where you were that disempowered, right? So fawning stems from, again, not conscious manipulation. It's seeking safety from a place of disempowerment, from mistreatment, right? That's why the context matters.
That's a huge help.
Thank you. Good.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, I'm sure maybe some other husbands out there can relate when their wife comes home and they share a scenario that happened, you know, walking home from yoga class or at the grocery store, running an errand or whatever. And my response is, why didn't you say something? Or why didn't you do anything instead of just, you know, not? Or why did you say this over that? In my opinion, I feel like, oh, well, there was a more clear, more obvious path to solve that problem, or at least to like make you feel more safe. And she goes, well, yeah, Chase, because you're a 5'11", 190 pound Caucasian male.
That's
I'm
right.
a 5'2" Iranian American woman, walking through an alley by myself kind of thing.
That's right. That's
so,
right.
it's an immediate kind of perspective shift.
There was this podcast I was listening to with Dax Shepard. You're familiar? Yeah.
Yeah, armchair expert.
Expert. So he was talking to Anna Kendrick, who did an amazing movie called Woman of the Hour, which is actually like kind of a brilliant movie on the fawn response, because every woman in that film is fawning for one reason or another.
I haven't seen it.
It's pretty fantastic. But anyway, she was being interviewed by him, and he was saying, I identify with the fawn response. And he tells this story when he was a teenager, and some bully came along and smacked his head into a car, and he's like, dude, I'd never do that to you, like befriending the bully, right? Like, you're
after
cool.
being physically assaulted.
Well, it was before or after, but it was in the context of a physical assault, right? Where his body just goes into like, we're cool, you're cool, I would never do that, right? And then he said, and my jaw just fell on the floor, he said, what was more shameful and hurtful to him, aside from the assault, was his body moving into appeasement. First of all, the shame that we carry by having to do it. And then he said, I'm so glad I grew out of the need for that response, right? Because now he's 6 whatever, and and I was like, most of us don't get the chance to grow out of it, right? So again, you think about childhood trauma and all of that, of course it stems from that. But being in the world, right, I still know I'm not at the top of that food chain, so to speak. It's the context really matters. And it's why even when I was sort of exploring this book, although it comes out of my practice and largely family systems, I really had to go, wait a second. We have to put this in the context of all of these systems that we're navigating, because it's so much bigger than just mom and dad,
What about ignoring a partner's bad behavior?
Well, it's that piece again of I can't engage in direct conflict. I can't engage in direct boundaries. I can't have a voice. That would escalate, and our body's job is to de-escalate. So, say the example again.
Ignoring a partner's bad behavior.
Yes, exactly. So another way to do it is, if I'm not going to soak up all the shame and apologize myself, is like, is it that big of a deal, right? Like, it was a one-time thing, or we write stories around the behavior to make it a little more palatable. We take that cognitive dissonance and we solve it somehow, and we tend to solve it within ourselves. I did this with my family, sort of endowing people with the desire to change or the resources to change when there was no evidence of that. But my hope almost made it so, So we're really good storytellers.
What do you think is a story most people are telling themselves right now that you want them to stop or change?
I think anything that's future focused in terms of like, it's going to get better, right? Like, I encourage them maybe not to stop, but to look at how long they've been holding that hope.
So more so look at the timeline from when it started to now, not so much saying hopeful in the future of how much longer can this really go on. That's
right. Or that it's going to change any minute, right? Like, they're going to see me, they're going to show up, they're going to get sober, they're going to get a job, they're going to, whatever the thing is, they're going to see me, they're going to give me the raise, right? We're waiting for external validation. So if you find yourself waiting and waiting, I would ask yourself, if nothing changed, really, if nothing changes, how do you feel right now? And even that question, it takes all of our sense of safety, which remains external. In this case, it's the external timeline even. It's tomorrow. It's next week. And we go, oh, wait, I'm in this body right now. How does it feel to be in this body right now? If your needs did matter, right? How would you feel? What would you want for yourself? I'm not even saying do anything different, because that's too scary. That's going to throw us back into like, no, I got to clean it all up. But there tends to be, we need to make a lot of space and a lot of permission just to even like dip our toes into if I had permission to feel the way that I feel, what might it be? And then I go, if you write it down, burn it, get rid of it, like just make it as safe as possible for your body to know that truth, even if it's just for a moment in time.
So I'm hearing presence.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that kind of being the tangible, tactical tool someone can implement to disrupt fawning behavior.
Yeah.
And I was thinking this future thinking aspect you're talking about, I would describe, would you agree, as false hope?
Yeah.
So if future thinking is not serving us and it's continuing to fan the fawning flame.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
A mouthful. And that is false hope. How would you describe looking at the past, looking at the timeline? Well, what is that kind of emotional umbrella?
Well, I mean, it's reality, right? You're shifting from, what I call toxic hope, because it's keeping you stuck in toxic relationships, environments. What we're asking people to look at is the reality. The timeline is the reality. It's what's actually happened or not happened most of the time.
So I just had a wild kind of coincidence. On the way in here, I was listening to this audiobook from a previous guest, actually, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. It's more of a business book called The Science of Scaling.
Oh.
And he was referencing the rapper and business mogul 50 Cent. You familiar?
I am.
And it was, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it was basically someone was interviewing Curtis, 50.
Oh.
And they were asking him, like, what does he attribute his success to? Because he just skyrocketed in both his career in music and with Vitamin Water, I think it was.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, Vitamin Water made him, I think, like 10 times whatever rapping.
I didn't even know that was his
That's
venture.
his baby.
That's
or like he primary endorser, initial investor, I think. And it was something along the lines of, reality is my currency.
Wow.
It was something about reality is my anchor, something like that. I'm going to have to find the quote and link it here. But what do you think it is about reality that some people can just grab hold of and be objectively truthful with and use as a tool, whereas others don't, and reality uses them as the tool instead? Because in my mind, this kind of links back to this aspect of presence and mindfulness, like we were talking about.
Embodiment. So as you said, the quote or your version of it, what happened in my body as I thought about that, reality being the currency, what that allows me to do is go from this very heady, maybe thoughtful, but perhaps still disconnected from my body way of being in the world. You think about this hopefulness and future focused, and all of these things are sort of out here. And reality, even that word, it drops me into my gut, right? The second brain, as many neurotransmitters as a cat has in their actual brain, right? All of the reasons
I've never heard that reference.
Yes, all the reasons that we say my gut feeling, reality is connected to that, the body's wisdom. And I will say the more that I have come back to myself, come home to myself, what I refer to as unfawning, the greater my connection to my body, where I know in a moment if something is a yes or if it's a no. At least I'm clearer than I've ever been in my whole life. And my head might be going, come on, Ingrid, it should be a yes for like all kinds of reasons and shoulds and sort of other people's opinions or whatever it is. But still, if my body's like, no, it's a no, I'm listening to this more than ever. And to me, that's what that means. I would love to ask him, like, what he thinks about that.
50, please let us know. If you're listening, drop a line. I'm sure he's a big Everford Radio fan. I found the quote, God bless Google here. Reality is my drug. The more I have of it, the more power I get and the higher I feel.
I love this so much.
He then goes on to expand a little bit and says, reality has its own power. You can turn your back on it, but it will find you in the end, and your inability to cope with it will be your ruin.
I've said so many times recently on podcasts and in conversations, and this is making it clear to me why I have made this reference, that It's September. It's my birthday month. The book just came out, but it's also my sobriety month. So I'm 30 years sober right now.
Happy birthday.
I know.
Congratulations.
Right? I know. I got sober when I was 4, clearly. But what I've been saying is what I have now in terms of connection to myself, connection to reality, it's better than the high that I was seeking in every substance I ever took. And I mean it. The thing that I was longing for and looking for, in addition to quelling my constant dysregulation, right? Because that's what a substance will do. I was looking for access to a life, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I have now. So I love the context of the whole quote, that it was like the best high, right? That reality is. And it allows us then, if I'm connected to reality and I feel it in my body and I have more consciousness because I'm listening to myself, I'm taking actual cues from the environment, what's going on, I'm not shape-shifting myself or kind of making it look a little bit better.
Right. Suddenly
I can make more conscious choices. If I make more conscious choices, I'm bringing all of whatever my personal gifts are, right? And that tends to give us more traction. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that we all get to have the success story that 50 does, but I think that there's real truth to that. And I've seen it in my clients over and over in terms of returning to themselves, connecting to themselves, and their lives transform in amazing, powerful ways, very specific to them. It's not always about financial success. But it almost feels magical. That's the word that I want to use. It's profound.
Yeah. Another example.
Yeah.
You kind of hit on it earlier, but staying late at work for recognition.
Yeah.
I think in the workplace, this is a prime example where we are fawning.
Yeah. And again, fawning is applauded. It's expected even. One of the clients that I work with, he's a partner in this global powerhouse law firm. He's a Harvard guy. He's Mr. Show up, suit up, make it happen. Super successful life on the outside, right? So he's the guy. You need someone to take that HR task or do whatever. He was the go-to for everything, and he did it, right? But when he came to me in his mid-50s, he was in a crisis with his son. And what he realized is, I have all of that stuff on the outside, but I don't have me. There's no me in any of those things. Didn't know what he liked. Like, what are you doing on the weekends? What are your hobbies, right? He was acting as if. He was acting like the person that society or his family told him to be to go be successful. And the sad thing is that he achieved all of those things only to find that he wasn't there. So that's one presentation of that. Success with the absence of but for what, right? Not to demean financial stability, because that's major. But anyway, to see what he's done with his life since then has been profound. But on the other side of that are the people that are like, yes, I'll do it. I'll do the extra work. Oh, no, I'll be on the team. Oh, no, you're so busy. Don't worry. I'll take it off your plate. And then they never get the credit. They never get the raise. They never get the title. Corporations are built on this. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. People want to hire a fawner in that respect because we're hardworking, we're super smart, we bring all of our resources to the table for you or for the company, right? Because we don't really matter that much, but we're waiting and hoping for but you're going to see me back, right? It's eventually going to come round to me. Yeah. And that's why the reality piece and the history piece is so important. It's how long have you been doing the dance? How long have you been performing in the hope of being seen? And what if you saw your own value right now? Right? Same thing with personal relationships. When I left my first marriage, it was the first time I'd ever broken up with anyone since my boyfriend in 3rd grade.
Your first breakup was?
A divorce.
A divorce. Wow.
That's right.
I go big or go home.
Go big or go home. Because similarly, I stayed and I waited, right? I'm like, no. This thing is going to work out. It's going to work out. And then I stayed, and then eventually they would leave, right? But asking my first husband for a divorce was truly the first time I stopped waiting and hoping. And I said, I don't care if no one has ever chosen me my whole life. I need to do it now. And it changed something profound in me, right? Choosing myself. I used to think that all the notions of self-love, I was like, ugh. It was that's a gross consolation prize. I I don't want to be the only one to do it. I want somebody else to love me. And the truth is now, it's that reality and currency piece again. I can't have that unless I'm connected to my true self. This relationship with me is the most important of all. It's not a consolation prize. It's the one that enables me to connect in a real and healthy way with everyone else in my life.
So I was looking up what you're talking about, just links so many other philosophies and approaches to life and mindsets that have impacted me tremendously, and a lot of things that I talk about on the show. Which is, I think, is a beautiful part about just this experience is I get to sit down from such unique walks of life and experts and authorities and community leaders that are walking in their line, and it kind of like paints a parallel to over here. And so it's just it's refreshing, it's reassuring.
It's reassuring,
and it's great to kind of hear things that I believe in, and hopefully my audience as well, in a different light. It kind of gets us out of our lane and go, oh, like this is another way to look at it. This is another way to embody it or to problem solve.
It kind of paints universal truths to me, right? I go, oh, wow, we came from such different paths and we ended up in the same exact place. I love it when that happens. And
there was this one in particular, I'm a big fan of Stoicism. And it sounds wild to say this out loud, but I've been reading the same book every morning for about 10 years. The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday.
Wow.
So it's this, for lack of a better term, kind of like a devotional. It's a book, and there's a quote from a Stoic philosopher or a great thinker during that period, and like a little expansion of it. And every day, so like I read one today. I read the same passage this time last year, 2 years ago. And each year it lands different.
I love that.
And so I was trying to find this one I was thinking of, I believe it's from Epictetus. This might be it, but now is the time to get serious about living your ideals. How long can you afford to put off who you really want to be? Your nobler self cannot wait any longer. This really lands for me, this aspect. Basically, it's another way of saying finally choosing yourself.
Yes. And the only word I got hung up on there is finally being who you want to be. For me, it's finally being who I am.
Who you already are.
It's not another curated version of the version of me that's going to be palatable to you, right? Or the version of me that is going to be whatever, lovable. It's like, can I finally be me? There was this period before I wrote this book, I wrote a memoir on childhood trauma. And in the process of writing that and getting ready to self-publish it, I went online and I started an account, went on Instagram and did the thing that we all do where we go, oh my God, am I shouting into the void? This is so brutal. I hate it. But at the same time, there was something creative there and interesting. And, before I was a therapist, I was a singer-songwriter. I've always had a bit of the performer in me.
She's got the jazz hands here,
little
everybody.
Bit,
you got to see the video.
And there was this opportunity for me not just to lead with like, hi, I'm Dr. Ingrid Clayton. I'm a clinical psychologist. Like, yes, I have some information that I can provide. I'm also a survivor who's in real time, like trying to crawl out from this thing that I've been living under my entire life for decades and decades. I'm also silly and irreverent and a performer. And what if all of those parts of me could exist in one place at a time? And doing these improv, infomercial, sing-songy things on Instagram was an opportunity for me to do that. And I tell you what happened is I thought, I'm about to tank any credibility that I have at this point in my career. Like, I can't be someone who's still trying to figure it out and doesn't have all the answers. I can't do it in song, for goodness sake, right? It was a little bit like, this is absurd. But there was a part of me that was so desperate to be all of me in one place that I thought, well, then maybe I'm not meant to be a clinical psychologist. Let's see what happens, right? And of course, it only expanded things and created more community and made me more relatable. And right, people could see themselves in what I was saying. And it created the very thing that I wanted, just being me. But not just being me, feeling the terror and the very... what I thought was a sure thing to happen was I'm going to lose everything as a result, right? That's the fire that we're asking people to walk through. And I don't take that lightly at all. And yet again, with my clients time and time again, they're like, Ingrid, it feels like I'm about to jump off a cliff. And I'm like, you are. You're jumping off a cliff of everything you've ever known, every sense of safety your body has ever had. We're literally making like every nerve ending exposed, and there's no Band-Aid big enough to hold it, right? And
this work you're talking about really requires this death of self, this ego death of this version of ourselves that we think exists to allow the one that already is to come up to the surface.
That's right. Yeah, and it's major and it's hard. I say it's the bravest, hardest work, most painful sometimes you'll ever do. The grief that we encounter, the terror that we encounter. It's the other reason why I really love a trauma-informed lens and language like fawning, because these other ideas of like, well, just set a healthy boundary. Like it doesn't take into account any of these things that we've just named. And then when people feel like they can't do it because they're approaching the grief and the terror and the, right, then they go, oh, well, now something's really wrong with me. I must be broken. And I go, no. No, this is exactly what it is meant to feel like. You're not alone in feeling that way. Here are other supports and resources that you might need. And quite frankly, setting boundaries tends to come at the end of a much longer process that has to start internal. We're asking people to move into the relational realm before they have a sense of who they even are, before they've built a new relationship to internal safety. We're like, go ahead, just do it again. And then it probably won't go that well. And you know what their body says? Well, guess what? I will never let that happen again. So I just think we're doing more damage, more harm than good when we don't really talk about the big picture with all of this stuff. And for me, the fact that there's no perfect finish line, which is the other reason I feel so passionate about leading with my personal experience. I don't want to like shame one more person into being like, you haven't figured it out yet. You know what I mean? It's like,
who does, by the way?
Who does? But it's a brilliant marketing strategy, right? People will give you their money like, oh, you have it figured out? Fantastic. Just tell me what to do. And I'm like, you know what? If I tell you what to do, I'm going to continue to rob you of the opportunity to know yourself, to connect with your gut, to feel what your next step is that I probably couldn't imagine if I tried. Not even if you're my individual client, right? Like what a silly idea that I'm going to have the answers for somebody else. So that's my little soapbox on that.
No, I love that. Thank you. And it's again, so reassuring to me. When I think about the most impactful advice that I've ever received, when I think about the most challenging, demanding, but needle-moving work, not to say that it hasn't come from others. I've gotten great insight from coaches and mentors and books and people. But when I get very real, it has always come from when I have finally allowed myself to listen to myself. And to give myself permission to be myself. Not just like on a moment to moment basis, but every damn day. And I've talked about this, I think, before in a solo episode a few years ago, but so I'm about to turn 40 this weekend.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. So we're in birthday company here.
Yeah, no kidding.
And when I turned 36, I said that I didn't know who I was, or rather, I didn't allow who I truly, fully was to exist and to be and express himself on a daily basis until I was 36. So it's kind of sad.
Yeah, it is.
Who wants to live 36 years not knowing, kind of knowing, feeling it out, but not allowing your truest self to exist. First and foremost, in your own mind and in your heart, in this world, but then to allow it to exist out in the world.
Right.
It's scary. It takes courage and it takes practice and it takes reps. But I think that's the best advice. I kind of being hypocritical to my own self here. But if I could give any advice to anybody listening now, it would be to, don't listen to us. Don't listen to me.
Right.
But listen to what we're talking about, how listening to yourself is the best thing any of us can do.
Yeah. I think, what you're sharing is personal experience, which I think is maybe one of the most helpful things to offer. It's to say, this is what worked for me. And then someone
Right.
can try that on, and I go, if that touches you and you go, oh, I'm really responding to that thing that you just said, well, then it probably is for you.
Right.
Right. But we
Right.
only get to know by noticing where our body kind of lights up in response to the story. I think shared lived experience is one of the most powerful teachers because it offers that thing where we go, I know what he's talking about. Theory can be sort of like, okay, I get it, right? Intellectually, I get it, but it's harder to bring into the body.
Right.
But personal experience
Right.
takes you right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always curious with authors when writing the book, what was the biggest revelation? Because I feel like anyone who writes a book about anything is probably because you feel some kind of authority in the subject matter or just enough experience to share, to your point. But things come up, right? Whether in your own kind of soul searching or research, what was if any, big revelation you had around the subject matter when you were writing this book?
Yeah. Well, I knew even when I was selling the book, I was like, yes, I have a lot to say here. And I know that writing the book is going to teach me more about this subject than I ever could have known until this moment. It really is a process. Writing is a process for me of discovery, right? It's like chipping away at a piece of marble or whatever. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's something in there. I didn't know what it was. But one of the biggest pieces, and it's kind of what we led with, I think, in this conversation, was the larger systems piece. Again, I'm a clinical psychologist, a trauma therapist. I work with individual people, right, that come to me, and they tend to talk about things like childhood. But as I looked at fawning, why it arises, the power dynamics that make it, available to us, essentially, it really was the systems piece that struck me. And quite frankly, on one hand, it's deeply sad because you go, oh my gosh, I can see why fawning is everywhere. That's the other reason we haven't seen it. It's everywhere all the time, right? In just about every single context. But as I saw, as someone, again, who was trying to crawl out from this thing she couldn't understand, and I knew a lot of the language was just shaming me and making me feel worse. And so, what is this? But as I started to see how universal it was, I was like, it's not just me, right? I make sense, which I sort of already knew from the lens of fawning, but I'm not alone in the bigger picture. I felt more connected to my fellow human beings. I will never understand what it's like to be a person of color, but knowing my relationship to fawning gives me at least a way into some level of understanding of like, oh my gosh, that's what that piece is over there, right? Or talking with my clients of color that talk about not just shape shifting, but code switching, right? You think about that, or you think about the neurodivergent community. They've used the language of masking. It's right. It's like, we're all talking about the same thing, right? These are all aspects to me of a fawn response. Code switching, someone isn't necessarily deciding, I have to go in and drop my voice and present in this certain way and hold. It just happens automatically. How do I be more palatable to you to keep myself safe? And so in a way, that was the big takeaway for me in the writing was I felt more connected to my fellow human beings, right? Like we all have a body. This is what bodies do when they feel threatened. I have my personal experience of it, but when you really break it down, it's not that different.
So you've thus far explained a lot, but also you were hitting on kind of the physiological aspect of this experience. Is there anything that you have experienced or you have tried to first more directly try to influence that physiological response? I guess what I'm trying to say is before this kind of consciousness shift and this awareness of what's going on, have you done anything or have you seen anything work in your clientele to help in terms of maybe it's a movement, maybe it's more of this, less of that in someone's nutrition, maybe it's a supplement, maybe it's a breath work technique. Is there anything we can do to really immediately insert ourselves, break that physiological pattern to help the body in a physiological state?
I mean, the answer is yes. And I want to say all of those things that you just named, right? And again, it's going to go back to what I say to people is there anything that you've wanted to try a class that you've wanted to take, something that keeps returning to you? Does meditation sound appealing? Start with the internal compass of like, what has seemed interesting or been available to me, but I've kind of shied away from.
So it comes back to being yourself again.
Yes, I think that is such a starting point. But beyond that, I'll say general things. One of my favorite things is walking and orienting to nature. So if I can do it on a hike, that's ideal. But if I do it in my city neighborhood and I simply notice the clouds or the trees, here's the thing. The senses are the language of the nervous system. Okay? So how do I get in present time and place? I use the senses. This is based on Peter Levine's work of somatic experiencing, which is one of the therapies that I use in my practice. We orient to the environment using our senses. So literally just noticing what you see. We are on autopilot most of the time and we don't even know it. So just going like, oh, I see this green leaf of that plant sitting behind you. Even the color of the light on the wall, noticing what I see puts me in this room, puts me in present time, and that puts me in my body. So orienting to the environment with the senses, it's free. We can all do it right now. That's what I love about it. And usually when I'm teaching people this in my practice, I take a spontaneous deep breath. Even as I'm explaining it because I'm practicing it. And guess what happens when you're more regulated? You take a spontaneous deeper breath. You're not efforting to like, now I'm going to take a deeper breath. Your body is just more regulated. And as a result, you take a deeper breath. So I love orienting. I love walking, like I mentioned, in part because you're moving your body, but it's an example of bilateral stimulation, which is any right left rhythmic pattern. It happens to be the foundation of EMDR. Have you heard of that therapy? It's a trauma therapy.
Yes.
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a mouthful. It's another modality that I use in my practice. I'm also telling people trauma therapy is helpful.
I was going to say, this sounds familiar to some tools that my therapist has given to me over the last year or so for panic attacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So regulating the nervous system, essentially. So bilateral stimulation, it helps to quell some of that activation. It also helps, these are the theories anyway. We know that it works. We don't necessarily know why it works, but part of REM sleep, when your eyes go back and forth like that, is to consolidate the information, consolidate the memories, bring them from right hemisphere to left hemisphere, which moves them into past tense, right? Part of trauma is that you're re-experiencing things. Right hemisphere, it's happening now, it's happening now, it's happening now. So walking or any drumming, dancing, these types of things, these embodied things, but also with the right-left pattern, I find to be very helpful. But also what calls you in terms of the senses? Some people love a weighted blanket. Some love scented candles. I love a hot bath. Some people are like, get the heat away from me. I can't stand it. Be curious. Be curious what you're drawn to. Be curious what you were drawn to. What did you play as a kid? When was the last time you played it? Do you have any memories of feeling like you were most yourself? Maybe it's just a wisp of a memory. It's like a moment in time, but can you capture that? When was the last time you were connected to the actual earth? Can you take off your shoes and feel the ground, right? Connection to something bigger, something greater. That's, again, allows a sense of safety and containment so that we can drop in. All of these things are different ways, but it's going to look different. Some people love yoga. Some people can't stand it. I'm not here to say that any one way works, but find your way and experiment. And then notice, what did I experience? What am I experiencing now? So in every trauma training I've ever been to, we don't use the language of, what do you think about that? Tell me your opinion, right? Because that's going to keep us prefrontal cortex, rational brain, the part of our brain that is disconnected from where trauma is stored, right? In the more primitive part of our nervous system. So we say, what are you noticing right now? What are you experiencing? And it might be a thought, but it might be, I feel numb. Or I just took a breath, right? Or I see these images or these memories are arising. I haven't thought about this for 30 years. Why is this coming up? These questions are so much more interesting. And again, they connect us back to the body. This work is embodied work. And then lastly, just even though I've already touched on a lot of them, IFS, internal family systems, or parts work is another biggie. All three of these, somatic experiencing, EMDR, and IFS, are pretty big trauma healing modalities that if you do have a sense of, I'm living in unresolved trauma, I can't break through some of these things. They keep haunting me. I think trauma therapy in particular, if you can avail yourself of it, is so helpful. And it's different than traditional talk therapy, right? It's going to be experiential or embodied and utilizing these different principles. And psychedelics, that's the new wave in trauma therapy.
Yeah.
I think it's still a bit of the wild, wild west out there. It makes me very nervous that people are sort of self-diagnosing, or going to other countries and going on, retreats and things that feel unregulated. Sometimes you can do more harm than good there too, but in the right hands with the right people, I think the data is clear that psychedelic assisted psychotherapy can be profoundly helpful too with
that experience I was describing at 36. On my 36th birthday, I went in for ketamine assisted psychotherapy.
Okay, yeah.
And the first session gave me that realization.
Wow. Right? So it's powerful.
To say the least.
When we talk about that, I feels like I'm going to jump off a cliff, or it feels like I'm not going to have any skin. I think the power of a lot of what psychedelics offer is it gives you that bridge to get over to the other side. That sort of containment is another way to speak of it. So that you can access some of that wisdom and bring it back without that sort of, my skin is crawling, I'm going to die, I can't do it, And that's real. That's real.
What would you say is the highest health cost of chronic fawning?
Oh, gosh. You name it. I think the data is also very clear in terms of autoimmune disorders and how they are related to unprocessed complex trauma, the stress, the literal stress that your body is holding. Gabor Mate talks about this a lot in terms of inflammation, right? That is inflammation. What does inflammation do to your body? It wreaks havoc in all these ways. So I think the physical costs are great. Burnout is really high, right? If I'm metabolizing all the ills of the world and every relationship that I'm in all the time, I am running so much stress through my system. People ultimately get tired, right? You can't keep doing it. I can't keep showing up this way.
So like chronic fatigue, exhausted. Brain fog.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Inability to recover maybe as fast as you used to, or at all, really.
Yeah. Every aspect of burnout. Or you just find you go, you know what? It's not even worth it. I'm just going to isolate all the time. Why bother sort of leaving the house or leaving my couch? It's that sort of Netflix rut of sort of this is all that I can do. You don't feel like you have real access to a life, right? And sometimes I go, well, that's as much of a cost as any. It's like maybe nothing is wrong necessarily, but you don't have access to a life. That's heartbreaking. The other thing you mentioned, which I don't think I've touched on as explicitly, is that in all the signs and symptoms of fawning, the one thread that runs through them all is self-abandonment.
What does that look like?
Well, it looks like if your needs are always more important, guess what? My needs don't matter, right? They're never going to rise to the level. If I am so conflict avoidant because it's terrifying, because when I did try to engage in conflict, it made things worse, right? Again, none of my needs are really being addressed. So if I have to prioritize everything external to me, I'm not even inhabiting my own body. There isn't even a sense of self at all. So it looks different depending on the person, but there's just this sense that we're waiting, hoping, helping other people to sort of resolve their stuff so that maybe eventually I can matter. And to me, that's the most heartbreaking piece of it is, again, we go missing in our own lives. I often think about Pinocchio, you know, the
What do you mean?
scene where he goes from like being on strings and then he becomes a real boy. I feel like unfawning is when you go, I'm a real live person. Oh my, I'm not on strings anymore, right? It's sort of like now I have skin. I'm not even made of wood. Like I go, that's the process that we're talking about.
It's almost like, I guess there's a way we all kind of have this awareness of the self, I am, you know, throughout our life. But there's this second aspect too. For me, it was on my 36th birthday when I went through this therapy and had this realization of, oh no, I am.
Yeah.
I am. And there's this kind of more obvious human experience recognition of that, of, oh, I am a human, I'm upright and mobile, I'm going through this life, I'm having this experience, but just of like true self. It's almost like this, when finally your inner self matches the outer self.
Yes, there's a congruence.
And there's no more difference between the two.
That's right.
Yeah, it's like this second awareness of coming online.
That's right.
The second time of, what is it, cogito ergo sum, you know, I think, therefore I am. But this time you actually mean it.
Wow, that's so beautiful. That's it.
So this has helped me in a unique area of my life and well-being to learn how to move forward. How, through the lens of fawning, would you say this can help my audience move forward? What does ever forward mean to you?
Well, I think for people that have felt like they were stuck in moving forward, for people that felt like, oh, that's not available to me, what I actually want them to know is that they make sense. They make sense. There's a reason, there's a protector, there's actually a part of them that was working so hard to keep them safe. That was part of what is keeping them stuck. And when we give people that ability to know that they make sense, to honor the origins of a behavior rather than just being like, stop doing that, just get that out of the way, that allows them to finally move forward in the ways that they've been longing for, right? So rather than focusing on the moving forward already, I just want to say you exactly as you are before you take one single step. You make sense right now.
Oof. I love that answer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, honor the origins. Yeah, because when you think about it, not to get, I don't know, too meta, I guess, but coming up, however nature and or nurture developed us, we had these natural inklings to what we like to do and what felt good, what felt, I don't like to say wrong, but you know, what we preferred to do and what just worked for how we chose to live.
Yeah.
In that kind of childlike wonder mentality. And we would try things. We had no fear or significantly less fear of repercussions, of being made fun of, because we didn't know that these things existed.
Right.
But we were so much more innately, it's almost even unfair to say courageous, because
just curious.
there was no fear. In order, you know, courage is acting despite fear.
Right.
But now, for some reason, over the years, as we develop, we lose sight of that.
Yeah.
But it's the same aspect. It's, you know, now as an adult, needing to go, what do I want to do? What feels right? What am I willing to just, you know, try? But now it's just this aspect of self that gets in the way.
Yeah.
Of this perceived self that gets in the way of true self.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that a lot of this is much more top of mind for me now as a new dad.
Yeah.
Because I just see almost every day, and I'm sure any parent can relate, just the innate wonder and curiosity and just living that a child has without fear. And it's just, it's a daily new teacher. It's incredible.
That's right. I've learned probably more from my son than anyone else on the planet.
Yeah.
So welcome to that education.
Well, this was very enjoyable. Thank you so much.
For me too. Thank you.
Of course, I'm going to have all of your information, the book and all that listed in the podcast show notes.
Oh,
and
great.
for you guys watching on YouTube, you can find it in the video description. But where can my audience go to connect with you, to learn more about fawning, or maybe even get your book? Did you do an audiobook by chance?
I did.
Did you read it?
I did.
Awesome. So you guys got to get the Audible. You can actually get a free 30-day trial if you go to
Oh, yeah.
audibletrial.com/everforward. I love it. Especially
too.
when the authors read the book.
Oh, it's my favorite. Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't have imagined anyone else doing it. I'm at ingridclayton.com, and you'll find all my social media stuff there. I'm on Instagram and Substack and all the places. I like to let people know I'm not taking any new clients, and I can't offer referrals. That would be my full-time job if I were to do that. But if you want a trauma therapist, go to the Psychology Today directory of therapists. It tends to be super comprehensive, at least in the United States. Look for someone who specializes in complex trauma, because they're going to have all of these tools at their disposal. And if they don't have my book, tell them about my book, because this is the next wave, and we all need to get up to speed in terms of trauma-informed care. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.